Hey everybody, this is Claire, and this is Small Joyful Things. As always, I go to thrift stores, or I go to estate sales, or I sometimes buy things from Craigslist, and I look for things that I personally find interesting, or that I think have a story to tell. And I try to find out as much as I can about them, and then tell you guys about them. So here's what I got today, and I got something really good for you. We have a twofer, and this is a sugar bowl and creamer set. And it is made of porcelain. It's incredibly finely made, and you can see that it has this cross flags on them. And we have a mark at the bottom. We'll get to that. These are really beautiful porcelain pieces. You can see that the gilt is just lovely. And despite some small manufacturing errors, they've survived very well. Now, I'm going to try and measure these guys up very carefully because I don't want to hurt them. It's about 6 inches across. I'm trying to eyeball this really. Let's say 5 3/4 inches across. This is a little bit wider, obviously, in that direction. And I'm a disaster. Let's try this again. Don't drop the tape measure on the nice ceramics, Claire. Okay, we're going to say it's 4.5 inches high. Put that over there. Let's see, maybe a little bit more than 6.5? No, 5.5. It's a little bit more than 4. I'm not really doing that very well, but hopefully you get the idea. And don't drop the measuring tape, Claire. About 3 3/4 inches. Come on, come on. Okay, there we go. All right. Now that that's done, okay. All right, so what exactly do we have here? I bought these in a thrift store. I think I paid $4 for this and $5 for this. I gotta go back and check because I'm pretty sure they didn't come as a set. Normally, like a creamer and sugar would come as a set. I don't think these did though. Essentially, I picked them up because I saw the mark, and the mark said Occupy Japan. And Occupy Japan means just after the Second World War, obviously, and I have a real kind of like fascination for that. It's like I just the whole kind of history and everything of the war is kind of, I find it really interesting anyway. But essentially what happened in Japan afterwards is also really interesting. This is something that I see kind of on and off in Vancouver. Obviously Vancouver has a very big Asian population. We have a lot of ceramics from Asia, lots of Chinese, lots of Japanese. I've seen some Korean. This one's a bit of an oddity though, because obviously it says Ceylon, and Ceylon's not Japan. And trying to puzzle out what's going on with this has taken me the better part of a couple of days. But the information is just, what I've actually found out is surprising and incredibly interesting, and it's partly to do with the war as well. So the first thing, because that says Occupy Japan, we now have a solid like final date that essentially the latest date that this is going to be 1952, because the occupation of Japan didn't last obviously past 1952. Japanese sovereignty was returned after the war at that point. Now I do have a whole bunch of information which we're going to get stuck into. But first of all, anyway, the occupation of Japan. 1952 is when it was finally returned, and it was ended by the San Francisco Peace Treaty signed on September 8, 1951, effective from April 28, 1952, after which Japan's sovereignty, with the exception of the islands, whatever, was fully restored. That means that this had to be produced in Japan some point prior to 1952. But, so what exactly is the significance, first of all, of these crossed flags and of the mark itself, especially Ceylon? Now, Ceylon is really interesting. That gives us another clue as to what else is going on here with that. And what we effectively have here is the Dominion of Ceylon. And this is going to be kind of hard to see, but if you look at this flag, top flag, 1948 to 1951, is that. And if you look at the coat of arms, I'm going to show it in this one. That flag looks kind of familiar. We can just about compare them side by side. That is the same flag. It has the same kind of little divots, whatever, in the corner. So now we have something interesting. This is from the Dominion of Ceylon, and it's from 1948 at some point to 1951. 1951, because that was when the flag was. And that's great. That means that basically lowers the latest possible year. It's going to be 1951 is basically the final year this could have been made. But is it from 1948, or is it like, do we have a range here we're going for? So Ceylon was an independent country in the Commonwealth of Nations that shared a monarch with blah, 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 because of obviously British colonialism being what it is. And between 1948 and 1972, it was called the Dominion of Ceylon. And after that, it became Sri Lanka, obviously, which it is today. But now we got to go back to the mark and try and figure out the rest of it, because we still have CWE, Ceylon, each for all for each. And then this tiny little icon, like the little picture in there. We're not entirely sure what that is. A group of people working together. CWE, and that gives us some hint of what's actually going on here. And what I found is effectively this: the Co-operative Wholesale Establishment. This is a company, like a government company, that was created, or essentially created like during the Dominion of Ceylon. It was created around I think they signed their They started their business activities on the 1st of July 1950, and is part of, incorporated in the Act year 1949. This was created during the Dominion of Ceylon, and it was essentially a government company. And the wholesale part of it, as best I can determine, is that they were responsible for bringing goods into Ceylon, like either importing or essentially bringing or selling or whatever. And they were just this big government company that would handle it, the wholesale part of it, that they would then obviously sell on to other stores. I've done a bunch of reading, and to be honest, a lot of it is, and it could be in a language that I don't understand. It's either I think it's Tamil or Sinhalese, if I remember the name of it. I don't understand that language. I've done my best to kind of puzzle out a few bits and pieces from the English anyway. The thing is, it does actually make sense that this is in English, because this, obviously at the time anyway, the Dominion of Ceylon was just about a former British colony at that point anyway, who still had the tradition of tea and tea services and this kind of stuff. But anyway, the CWE, the Co-operative Wholesale Establishment, they were charged with bringing in goods for resale, or for around the Dominion of Ceylon. But what have we got going on here with this cross flags thing? And what exactly does it mean? Each for all and all for each. Now, I want to say big shout out to Ben the Hammerhead on Twitter for for doing a little more research. And he found another reference which I found interesting: the Trade Unions of Sri Lanka, Ceylon Workers Congress, and a few other things here. There's a few hints here that the CWE might refer to this political party, the Ceylon Workers Congress. And it seems to be, if I can find it here, the Ceylon Workers Congress, CWE, is a political party in Sri Lanka that has traditionally represented Tamils working in the plantation sector of the economy, Sri Lankan Tamils of Indian origin. And we're kind of like couldn't really decide whether it refers to the Co-operative Wholesale Establishment or to this particular political party. But there seems to be a very strong connection with the cooperative movement in general. The kind of whole, workers operating together kind of a thing. So it's a bit kind of like, we're not 100% sure which it is. I have been leaning towards it being the Co-operative Wholesale Establishment, mostly because they're a government company, and this was clearly made for government use. Because I got thinking when I looked at it, it's like, why exactly would there be a creamer and a sugar bowl set with the cross flags of the Dominion of Ceylon on them? And I'm like, okay, so if you're the Governor General of the Dominion of Ceylon, who was one of the lords or whatever at the time, presumably you want to do what you do back in England if you were one of the royal family or something. They have their own tea service, probably with the Union Jack or something on it. Or if you're, say, in the US and you go to, you know, a meal or whatever at the White House has its own dinner service that has like the Great Seal of America on it, you know, it's like it's a patriotism thing, you know. So it's kind of interesting and kind of cool to think that what we might have here is a creamer and a sugar bowl that might have been used by, say, the Governor General of the Dominion of Ceylon back in the 1950s. Anyway, the dating, though, is something that we can actually figure out. And I'm pretty sure that one way or another, it's going to be around this time. And personally, I'm betting 1951, possibly 1950 for this particular set. I think it was made specifically as for government use. It's possibly related to the Co-operative Wholesale Establishment who would have ordered this stuff in. And made in occupied Japan, who were obviously known for making very fine wares at the time. And the cool thing about it is that I actually traced down I found actually another creamer in a thrift store. I didn't actually buy it because I didn't like it that much and I didn't have a sugar bowl with it. It was almost exactly the same style as this. Maybe a little bit narrower on the lip, but it was very, very close to it. And that one was actually Nagoya ware. So that even narrows it down further. We know almost like where in Japan it would have been made. And that's super cool. Now, the problem, of course, is that as fine as this set is, I could not tell you what it's worth. I know what I paid for it. I cannot tell you, I couldn't even start to figure out what something like this might actually be worth. Like, there is nothing like it. Literally nothing. There's nothing really comparable. And I have no idea if there even is a market for it. Like, the difficult thing about having pieces that are truly unique is that you have nothing to compare it to, and there's no way there's no way essentially for like a market to know that it wants something if they don't know it exists. Like if I have something like a rare piece of like Northwood glass or something, then I know for a fact that I can price that out. And like especially my big Northwood Daisy bowl or the poinsettia bowl, like there's comparable stuff to, and essentially there are collectors who are specifically looking for that and know what it's worth and are willing to pay the price that I decide to put on it. For this, it's just an unknown. An unknown is bad. You can't price something that it's unknown, and you don't have an audience for something that's unknown or a market for it. So the difficulty with this is that it essentially has to stay with me for the time being. I actually don't know what I can do with it. All I've done so far is that I've actually sent an email to the consulate of Sri Lanka in Ottawa, because, you know, obviously I'm in Canada, and I've just asked them, like, can you tell me anything more about this set, or do you want it back? For all I know, this is something significant, or something that, like, someone would want to put into a collection or something into a museum, because it's possible it is something, you know, rare enough or unusual enough that it should actually be in a museum in Sri Lanka as kind of a historical artifact of the time, especially because, like, we've got a possible connection here to maybe a political party. I'm not 100% sure. So that's basically where we are right now. I'm just going to have to wait and see with that. Maybe I'll do an update video for you guys. I don't really know. But for the time being, I'm really glad that I found this. I found that the going through the whole process of researching this has been incredibly interesting, and I'm very glad that I got to do that. Like, it's the best kind of thing that I can find. It is a piece of history essentially revealing itself through fine objects. And I'm glad it really makes me happy. So these are my small joyful things for the day. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Bye-bye.